In this chapter, Fanon talks about his experience in France. After World War II, Fanon decides to stay in France and study psychiatry and medicine. He becomes disillusioned with the racism he experiences on a daily basis. Prior to moving to France, Fanon had lived in Martinique, an all-black country, so he never had to experience the feeling of being black. He never had to experience the feeling of being othered. Look, a Negro. It was a passing sting. I attempted a smile. Look, a Negro. Absolutely. I was beginning to enjoy myself. Look, a Negro. The circle was gradually getting smaller. I was really enjoying myself. Mama, look, a Negro. I'm scared, scared, scared. Now they were beginning to be scared of me. I made up my mind to laugh myself to tears. But laughter had become impossible. In the train, instead of one seat, they left me with two or three. I was no longer enjoying myself. I was responsible not only for my body, but also for my race and my ancestors. I cast an objective gaze over myself, discovered my blackness, my ethnic features, deafened by cannibalism, backwardness, fetishism, racial stigmas, slave traders, and above all, yes, above all, the grinning Yabonania. My body was returned to me, spread-eagled, disjointed, redone, draped in mourning on this white winter's day. The Negro is an animal, the Negro is bad, the Negro is wicked, the Negro is ugly. Look, a Negro. The Negro is trembling. The Negro is trembling because he's cold. The small boy is trembling because he's afraid of the Negro. The Negro is trembling with cold, the cold that chills the bones. The lovely little boy is trembling because he thinks the Negro is trembling with rage. The little white boy runs to his mother's arms. Mama, the Negro is going to eat me. Fanon is distraught. The racism wears him down, but he finds solace in reading about black history and also being introduced to the Negritude movement. Fanon was introduced to the Negritude movement by Aimé Césaire. The Negritude movement was basically about reclaiming pride in African culture through writing and poetry. Fanon starts reading works of other leading Negritude figures like Leopold Sédar Senghor, where he talks about African art. Fanon starts feeling more pride in his skin color. The feeling of finding out that he didn't come from nothing, that Africa actually had some great civilizations, fills him with pride. So it helps him cope with the immense racism he faces in France. Have I read that correctly? I give it an even closer reading. On the other side of the white world, there lies a magical black culture, Negro sculpture. I begin to blush with pride. Was this our salvation? In a frenzy, I excavated black antiquity. What I discovered left me speechless. In his book on the abolition of slavery, Schoelcher presented us with some compelling arguments. Since then, Frobenius, Westermann, Delafosse, all white men have voiced their agreements. Segu, Digne, cities with over 100,000 inhabitants, accounts of learned black men. Once this has been dug up, displayed, and exposed to the elements, he allowed me to regain a valid historic category. The white man was wrong. I was not primitive or subhuman. I belonged to a race that had already been working silver and gold 2,000 years ago. Fanon engages with the work of Jean-Paul Sartre. He made a comments which Fanon took slight exception to. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote this about negritude. In fact, negritude appears as the weak stage of a dialectic progression. The theoretical and practical affirmation of white supremacy is the thesis. They know it serves to pave the way for synthesis or realization of human society without race. Thus, negritude is dedicated to its own destruction. It is a transition, not a result. A means, not the ultimate goal. When I read this passage, I felt they had robbed me of my last chance. I told my friends, the generation of young black poets have been dealt a fatal blow. We had appealed to a friend of the colored peoples, and this friend had nothing better to do than demonstrate the relativity of their action. Fanon felt Sartre didn't quite appreciate the importance of the negritude movement, even though he agreed with Sartre that negritude was basically a transitional period. He felt Sartre did not give it the importance that it needed. After some time, Fanon started realizing that there were some limitations to negritude. There were some limitations to the philosophy of negritude, rather. Even though he fully appreciated it and considered it a liberating force for him and other colonized people, he still felt it was a bit problematic, tying human dignity to a so-called glorious past. If their civilizations were indeed not as impressive as other civilizations, according to the white man, would that then mean they don't deserve human dignity? They don't deserve respect? So he kind of feels negritude is not the final stage, but it's a very important stage in freedom and liberation. In the next part, I'm going to talk about chapter 6, which is titled The Black Man and Psychopathology.